For those that don't know me, Sharon Fox, yeah, Queen of the Midlands. No, not really. I'm the decontamination lead for Birmingham. So my responsibilities are I look after 4 central decontamination units. So anything that requires high-level disinfection in between patient use goes through the central decontamination unit. And then I also manage the contract with a third-party provider for sterile services looking after 86, just over 86 theatres for UHB. So what I'm going to do today is, and apologies for those that that went to IDSC last year and took part in the great debate. If not, you're on a winner. We're going to talk about loan trays. And what we wanted to do, I was reflecting on loan trays thinking, God, I've been in this business now for 37 years. And I'm always on my soapbox about something, and loan trays was one. And then when I actually looked at it, I think loan trays only came, or sort of became on my radar about, I'm going to say about 20 years ago. And I was thinking, well, why is it 20 years ago, not, 37 years ago? And I think it's because innovations within, and we're going to talk about orthopaedic, hadn't been, hadn't grown. So, the orthopaedic surgeons just basically got on with what was on the shelf. But now there's new technology, there's new knee implants, hip implants, specialist equipment for this. So then that's when the loans have come in. So what we decided to do for the great debate that we had at IDSC is to do a loan tray survey. So we came up with a number of questions that we wanted to ask, and we initially circulated this to IDSC members. And we were quite surprised by the response. Out of all the membership, we only actually had 67% of members respond to the questionnaire. If we'd have had 100, OMG, I'd be in a different job. It's absolutely phenomenal. So what he did do for me, the benefit for me, is when we had the great debate, we had a clinical lead specialist in orthopaedic, and he's one of the top knee and ankle surgeons. We also had a company that does loan equipment that sends it out all the time. And myself and Professor Young, our president, were there to ask the questions. So what we did is we came up with these questions, as you can see. How many loan trays are processed per month? What percentage of loan trays are processed in presentation graphic containers? How many incidents have been reported to loan trays for damaged drapes, problem IFUs, late delivery to SSDs, implantable devices on trays, cancel cases? And then question 4 was, is there any other incidents that's been reported that is not listed in the above? Whose responsibility is it to order the loans for processing? Is it theatres, is it SSD, or is it another? And is training offered automatically with loan trays? Does the department compile a detailed check sheet? So if a loan comes in late, does your department as SSD compile that check sheet, or do you use what the manufacturers use, or as the photographic ones? So this is the response, and it was a bit crazy. So question 1, how many loan trays does it cost per month? What we did with that is generally, and I don't know if it's gone up in price, but it used to be £500 a day for loan a loan tray. So then you'd have to loan it in, so it arrives and you're checking it off in theatres, and then I'd have to go to sterile services, and then they'd check it, and then it'd be back the next day for use on the patient. Yeah? So that's where we estimated what the NHS, just from this collaboration, just that 57% of the IDSC membership what we would be paying on just loaning equipment. Okay, so question 2, 98% of the presentation containers were in graphic containers. And when I was talking to our clinical lead specialist, he just couldn't get his head around, well, what's the problem, Sharon? I said, well, normally they've got feet. And then if you add an additional wrap to them, then you're creating another problem, and you can't guarantee if it's an off-site service that it's, you know, going to get there intact. And, you know, it just presents problems after problems after problems. And I do know that some areas that need to be really careful where they've decanted the loan equipment into sterilisation containers, but they're not aware if it's been validated in that sterilisation container. So, you know, there's quite a lot of comments that were coming up. So, question 3, how many incidences? So, from the figures that we got 978 reports of damaged drapes through the loan trays, through the design. There was over 1,000 reports of problems with the IFUs. You know, some of them stated, I think there was one that was come up from Wales, that it says in the IFU you need to use RO water to rinse, but Wales don't use RO water, so then that presented a problem. Late deliveries of, to the SSD. So, you know, they might have had it in the theatres on Monday. They want to use it on Thursday. It arrived Wednesday afternoon in an SSD. Implantable devices still on trays. So, again, one of the questions we did ask, how do you know what the lot numbers are? How do you know those implantable devices have been in that tray? How many times have been processed? It goes on and on and on. And then we had 730 cancelled cases. So that's the cost of a cancelled case per month. Now, I was Googling it, because Google's very good. And when I was looking at Google, because it keeps changing, when you ask a theatre member stuff, how much does it really cost when a cancelled case goes down? Oh, you know, 1,200. Apparently, it's £1,200 per hour. That's the cost of a cancelled case without, you know, the trauma for the patient. And I guess we're all under the same remit, aren't we? We've got to make CIPs and everything else, and this just stands out for me. If we get it right first time, but ask the questions and report the incidents, then maybe we could make a really decent saving. So, the other survey responses, oh, that's cool. This is basically what I did is I just copied and pasted, because it was an anonymous survey that we went in. And this is the comments that they were able to put in that additional comment. And I won't go through them, but no advance notice came up. There's quite a lot of comments. Wet containers, overfilled with graphic trays. And again, this is just a copy and paste from their comments. One case of loan kit was delivered and there's a damaged instrument. So again, that's delayed. Theatres are not checking. I know there was an incident, not in this trust that way, but there was another a company I worked for, a private company, and there was an incident where the loan tray came in for this specific case, and it came straight into sterile services, didn't go to theatres. Sterile services checked it, did the check sheet, sterilised it, got it back out, patient on the table, opened up, and that critical device was missing. It caused mayhem. Patient was on the table. Why, I don't know, because you're supposed to check it before you know, post-op checks. To the point where the surgeon had a helicopter, and they had to go in this helicopter to go fetch this device and bring it back to continue with the case. Crazy. In most cases, implants are sent with loan kits. However, you know, they're not packaged or they go straight into theatres. Split kits, extra trays turn up, back door, no requisitions. I think we were having a talk, weren't we, Trevor, at one of the Board of Council about loans, and there was somewhere that, again, we're going to bring this up as a topic, where loan trays were received in to the theatres sterile, and then when they were used on the patient, then they went to the SSD. Now, I know in my days when I was SSD, if you were going to use a loan tray, it had to go through your own facility before it was used on your patient. So we were having a little bit of a chat about that. And this is why what we want to do is, again, send more information and get a survey out, because the aim is that we take the information, because I think we've all had a time and we've spoke about this, and you spoke to the theatre manager, but we're all in silo and we need to work together and get a voice to the manufacturers to see if we can change things. Incomplete, delivered contaminated. Yeah, we had that on a couple of occasions where it arrived at the sterile services and they did the check and it was contaminated. So then what we were able to do is go back to that loan company and report that there's going to be a delay because it's contaminated, and then they have to give me 500 quid back. So I was quite hot on that one. But unfortunately, the one case I knew is the equipment went into theatres checked it, didn't check it properly, and it was the sterile services that picked it up that it was actually wasn't taken apart, so it was contaminated. So yeah, some instrumentation arrives with no trays and no baskets, loose instruments. Weights of trays, they don't always say what the weight of the tray is, because obviously for an SSD person that causes us problems because there's manual handling, and also, you know, the weight of the kit, can it be sterilised effectively in the autoclaves. Corner studs to bases, graphic containers. I used to always say, and it's like, I don't know, it's like maybe a Stoke-on-Trent thing, but you know, when an orthopaedic surgeon, you say, oh, Sharon, why do you like that? I said, have you ever wrapped a set of darts? That's what it's like. It's really, really difficult. No deconcerts, no checklists. Again, sterile loan trays, borrowed, brought. The list just goes on. Too heavy. Deliveries to the wrong site. And there was another one that we were having as well. If a representative knew that you got a loan tray in your department, that they'd sneak in and take it out and give it to another hospital without you knowing. So again, that was a common problem. Incorrect paperwork, just leave the trays without properly checking them. Issues with IFUs, there you go, Wales. They participated. So, question 5, it was 95% of the response was that it was theatres are responsible for ordering the loan kits, and that's the same for us and our UHB. It's predominantly theatres because they have to obviously communicate with the surgeons. 93% said there's no training. The loan kit comes in and it's sent down to sterile services and we want it back the next day. So they have to do the best that they possibly can. There's a 50-50 response from some people do a check sheet, or some people just use what the manufacturer sends in. These are the questions that we raise to the suppliers. Are the implants tracked on how many times that they've been processed? This particular one manufacturer that we had on the debate said, yeah, we do. And what we do now is we send them out pre-sterile. So that isn't in, you know, that's not included. But I have seen loan equipment come into UHB with a caddy full of instrument, with the screws and implants on. And one of the theatre practitioners said, oh, Sharon, can you just have a look at this because I'm not quite sure. And they've gone that translucent colour. So you can see there's obviously something that's gone wrong with them. They've got, you know, shades of pink, blue and all sorts of in them. So we reported that company to the MHRA. I don't take any prisoners, I'm afraid. How do the companies manage contaminated loan trays? I don't know if anybody has ever had a report from a loan company saying, oh, we've just had your tray back and it's dirty. I don't know whether the loan trays come in and they do check them, and it needed that urgent. It comes in, they just record how many implants they've used, and then it goes out to the next hospital. Tray weights, again, this particular manufacturer is working towards that. But what we don't want is, we don't just want this one particular manufacturer, we want all the industry manufacturers to get on board with this, because I think we've been talking about it for too long now. Why are the loan trays not in sterilisation containers? I don't know. I call them a presentation. I don't call them graphic. I call them presentation containers because I think they're just presenting, aren't they? They're just presenting to the surgeon, oh, look, this tells you what this knife and fork does, and it sits in this device, so it looks all pretty. And it's too much like hard work for the theatre practitioners to know every instrument. Excuse me, I had to as a sterile services technician. So why can't a theatre practitioner do it? The same. Doesn't take long. Can companies provide a QR code? So another initiative that they were looking. So the loaner kit comes with a QR code, you scan it, and then it prints out a content sheet for you. So how do we engage with the suppliers, and how do we resolve the problem? And this is my point of view now, because obviously looking after over 86 theatres, you can see the problems coming up. I go through the procurement leads, always have done. Consignment kit that comes into UHB, so this is your loan kit, but you keep it for a long time. We don't accept it if it isn't in a presentation container. And if the company says, well, it's going to cost us X amount of money, then so be it. That's what you need to do. And if they say, well, we'll go elsewhere, and go, ta-ra, we'll go to another company. You've got to really toughen up with these chaps. And then I always get the clinical lead specialists on board, the consultants, and get them involved. Report. Has anybody ever reported an IFU that's incorrect? I have, yeah. You've got to. And there is something that we're doing within the IDSC as well, through branches. If you have an IFU that's not really good, report it into your branch. And your branch will then report it on to Darren Carter, who's the research director. And the more information we get, then the more ammunition we're going to, tackle these companies. Report defect containments. I do. I don't maybe report it to the MHRA, but I do report it through our internal Datex or radar system. And then I assign procurement as the handler. So they have to do something about it. But I do report, because obviously if that's caused a cancel case or a delay, then we need that justification, and I need the theatres and procurement to do something about it. Report heavy trays. I do report heavy trays. Again, it might be a governance internal thing that I tend to do, maybe not MHRA. Check if the company's on supply chain. That's a new one that's come through. Normally, new devices that come into UHB as the decon lead, I will go through the technical stuff, but not the loan bypasses. And then only when it becomes a problem, and they asked me to investigate it, and I did, and I don't know how, but I did report them. They weren't on supply chain, and we're supposed to get the best with supply chain, aren't we, for funding. And review the usage. So we have a decontamination safety group meeting. We have them every 6 months, and my gaffer chairs that, and then I'll come in. But we do look at loans as part of that usage, because one of the things that we did identify, and I am like Big Brother, I've got the tracking systems and everything, if we see that we've loaned that device on a regular basis and it's going to continue, then why don't we put the funds together to buy it rather than keep loaning it? So that does come up at a decontamination safety group meeting. So that's it for me on my soapbox. But if you are keen to get involved with the next survey, then please, reach out to myself or the admin officer at the IDSC, even if it's just to collate some further questions, because what we want to do is go back out again, gain this information, and then send that out to the manufacturers and see if they can work with us rather than against us. Thank you.